oh, 3, 3, oh, 3, 3, oh, 3, 3, oh, 3, 3,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Akron's hottest and fastest growing show, 3-3 to go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from Stakeout Studios atop the bridge above Acme number 1. Today, we get to talk about financial independence and striving to achieve a debt-free existence. But before we do that, let's have a big round of applause for Lindy. No Lindy today. All right, so we're going to go a different direction.
Just living the dream.
Just living the dream, I am, right? All right, so Lindy couldn't be here today, so I've got 2 new co-hosts that have signed up to be a part of 3-3 to go. They just don't know it yet. Let's have a big round of applause for Jessica and Stacy, everybody. Here's the applause for them. Do I have lettuce in my teeth?
How you doing, Hank?
I'm just living the dream. Just living the dream.
Today's episode is brought to us by Stray Dog Food Cart, making Akron more Akron-y since 2009. The carts have hit the streets, so look for them around town. You can stop by their flagship location underneath the main Akron Library, or you can head out to the Northside Marketplace as well.
Today's show is also brought to us by Acme Fresh Markets. It's Meat Week. There's beef, pork, and chicken, all at crazy prices. Hottest prices, best deals, and fastest checkout. Shop Acme. I stock up on meats and fill up my freezer chest for meals for the month.
That's what I do. And so today I was at church today, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, thanks for reminding us that this was Acme Meat Week." They went and shopped yesterday and bought $510 worth of meat for $215, okay? So that's the beauty of Meat Week. Folks, today is also brought to us right on the placards. You can see our sponsors right up front by Cycling Solutions. Cycling Solutions, if you're in need of bike repairs, bike adjustments, special fittings, initial bike setup, or coaching or counseling, Tom is your guy. They're located right in Copley. They can help you. His expertise and process is second to none in Akron, in the whole Northeast Ohio community. I encourage you to reach out to him either on Facebook or online at www.cyclingsolutions.net. And again, we took our bikes camping after he had adjusted them, and they worked flawlessly. So thank you so much for Cycling Solutions for being one of our sponsors. Also, I'm wearing the shirt. You can read it at the bottom, and it's right up here in the front, 330-400-6628. That is Mobile Screen of Ohio. They're a premier provider of workplace substance abuse testing, and they offer comprehensive compliance consulting as well as collection programs and services dedicated to helping companies reduce the risk management and exposure within their own work environments. Whether you're an employer, a governmental entity, or if you need them personally, a concerned parent, Mobile Screen of Ohio provides a complete line of drug and alcohol testing services and the programs to fit your needs. In addition, I'm still going, aren't I? Okay. In addition, our newest sponsor is Custom Spray, which you can see their placard down the way, 330-861-5035. They did a bug buster perimeter spray on my lawn about 3 weeks ago, and I got to admit that the fleas have gone down. So whatever they're doing, they keep on doing it. And I'm a client as well, and my lawn looks fantastic, mostly because I groom it well myself. But Custom Spray does a really good job keeping that lawn looking green. All right? And I got a J for the next one.
Yes. We are also excited to note that Sheena's Platinum Movement is returning as a sponsor after their summer break. They are now accepting new students for the upcoming season. We're excited for Sheena's Platinum Movement to be returning to our sponsorship group.
So Sheena made me a shirt last week. It said, "Dance Dad, scan here for payment." In the last week, I've worn that shirt 5 different places. And I can tell you, Miss Sheena, if you're watching, which you probably will be later, that shirt is a hit. You need to sell a bunch of those as quickly as possible. And more importantly, they tried to scan me. People were coming up with their phone with their little scan thing, okay? So whatever you got to do to figure out the QR code or whatever so it sends the information for your studio, your dance studio, make it happen. I'm just telling you, it's going to be a hit. All right, ladies, so thank you so much for being here. It's time to talk financial management. So, folks, this is Jessica and Stacy, and guys, I met you on the set of Sip of Solidarity, one of our shows from the network, one of our sister shows. And I was real excited about what you guys talked about then. I wanted to put like a little different spin on it here tonight. Look at the Kate's chiming in. Sheena's Platinum Movements is amazing. You and your child will love it. All right, so thanks, Kate, for watching. She may or may not be my wife. All right, so point being, thank you, ladies, for being on. So I always ask the first question. So tell us, kind of give us a background, like one at a time. What's your Akron story, and kind of tell us your family dynamic and your financial background, if you would.
Yeah. You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've lived in the Green/Akron/Copley area, somewhere in one of those areas, pretty much my whole life. I have a wonderful husband, Justin, who's a teacher in Green, a soccer coach in Brecksville, and we have two wonderful kids, two little boys, 5 and 3, Emerson and Elliot, and they are truly what inspired my husband and I to start living a debt-free life. And so basically our story in a nutshell is I was working when I had our first son, Emerson. And I even had this like amazing job where I was a full-time nanny and was able to bring my son to work with me. But the job just wasn't working for me anymore. It wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to be home with him. But unfortunately, when, I sat down at the kitchen table with my husband to have that discussion and we looked at the finances, it was just financially impossible. And so that was our motivation right there to make changes in our life. Because what's more important than living the life that you want? And so that just kind of kicked us into gear, and we spent 4 years paying off over $120,000 worth of debt. Yeah.
Hold on, that deserves something here. Bazinga for that.
Bazinga.
One. There you go. All right.
And now I just love sharing our story with anybody who wants to listen, because the things that we did just were life-changing for us. And I feel like there are so many people who feel stuck in debt, which is how we felt when we first saw that number of, $121,000. We thought, we're going to have to work the rest of our life. Like we'll never, ever not work. Like it just felt so overwhelming. But 4 years later, we were debt free. Besides our mortgage, we still have that. But I mean, all the consumer debt, all the student loan debt, all the car loans, everything gone. And it's possible for anybody.
Okay.
So that's my story.
Okay.
I love it. And I love how passionate you are when you talk about it, because it just really exudes from you.
Keep going.
So my name is Jessica Holt again. So I'm originally from Georgia. We've lived in Akron for about 2 years. I'm currently now a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual. I started my practice in 2015, had worked in the finance industry for about 5 years prior to starting my own practice. So built up a lot of knowledge, got all of my licensing, and then took the plunge and started my own practice. So a large reason why I did that is because I love to help people. I love to sit kneecap to kneecap with folks and to guide them through their own finances. And similarly, my husband and I actually have a financial advisor ourselves, because I think it's really important to bounce very weighty decisions off of other people. It's really helpful when you're trying to make big decisions to kind of have that person to kind of help you guide you. So that's a reason why I became an advisor in the first place, is to be a mentor to people and really guide them to their financial success and financial future. So I've been doing that in Akron for 2 years, and then had my practice prior in Illinois for 2 years. We've moved around a little bit, but love Akron. Currently live in the Highland Square area. So we walk everywhere, do a lot of fun stuff. I got 2 little kids. Harvey and Harper, 6 months and 2.5 years old. So got a handful at home. They're currently at amazing daycare when I'm at work, where they both really thrive and have grown a lot. So it's really awesome. And then my husband Ryan teaches at the University of Akron.
Nice. Well, before I tell about my financial history, I got to ask you a question. I put this on Facebook about a month ago. Is there a legitimate difference between a Georgia peach off of that truck and just a peach that we would buy here?
So it's funny that you mentioned this. The guy that does that actually went to high school with me.
You
So
kidding?
I know him personally. Yeah.
So, like, does he give you intel? Like, yeah, I'm going to be up next week.
We haven't,
like, hey.
we haven't been like in regular correspondence, but I can tell you some Georgia peaches, they're legit.
But can you just buy a couple of them? You got to buy like a case.
buy
Like you can split with friends.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Free.
it's kind of like buying a cow, right? You go in when you buy a cow.
do.
You buy a cow with like 8 different friends or something.
Right.
Okay,
Oh
all
no,
right.
the whole family buys
Hey,
one
it's
cow.
very
and-
budget friendly to do it that way.
Yeah.
All right, okay. But but do they taste different? Are they better?
I think so. I mean, even when
I
you
would
buy them
say
from
yeah,
the store,
absolutely.
like they're really good.
Okay, all
Ones
right.
at the store are hard. Like
Right, that's
they're
what everybody
just-
told me. It's like they're sweet and juicy. I'm like,
Yeah.
see, I'm not a peach guy
The
because
Georgia
man.
peach.
anything I bite into that I could kill my teeth, I don't eat ever, usually. Like the hard cherries and the peaches and all that. So, all right. So I am like a perfect example of financial American guy that just literally sucks. Like everything we're about to talk about tonight. And I hope Kate's watching. She'll get mad at me for some of the stuff I'm about to say. But we are horrendous at money. We are, and, you know, people make the joke about, not a joke, but they make the statement about how they live paycheck to paycheck. We live like tax refund to tax refund. It's like scrape, scrape, scrape. Because everything I do, I'm in contract work. Everything, it's like I'm based on getting a sale, then waiting for those big sales to come in, and then once you do the thing, then waiting on payments to come in and all that. So it's trying to budget all that. So then she works a little bit, and now I got a kid that's getting ready to go to college. She's working a little bit. So it's like, and if you look at our financial history, you know, everybody knows I grew up in Akron, but what they don't know is about my finance stuff. So I've had to close down. I took over a company for a guy and I thought I could rescue it, and I didn't. I failed. And one of the hardest things to go through is that entrepreneur mentality and then crashing to the ground, and all your finances are in the ruins and burning around you, and you're like, then what do you do from there? So we're still recovering from that, and then there's tax issues, and there's the government comes after you, and it's all that on top of the regular debts that you already have. So yeah, I'm very interested in what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm sure Kate is too, if she still has tuned in. She'll punch me when I get home, but that's okay. But the point is, we have 4 children. So all the expenses that you have on that regular basis with the kid, we have double that. And on top of that, my wife initially worked at KinderCare out in the Montrose, Fairlawn area. And we reached that point, and it was just what you had mentioned. There's a saturation point where you realize, okay, if I keep working, it's going to cost us more money as a mom if I just don't work and then stay at home, because it's all that daycare and childcare expenses. And KinderCare was okay with it, but no matter where you go in those corporate daycare places, the cost is ridiculous, and they don't give you a lot of breaks. Like, we got a break per kid. It still didn't. I mean, she would work for 2 weeks and come home, and her paycheck would be $10 because all of it went to cover the daycare expense, and she would just sit there and cry. Yeah. And it was like, well, I guess it makes sense for you not to work there anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my framework. Okay. So all that being said, when it comes to the debt itself, oh, look, Sheena's just tuned in. Sheena, you better go back and watch the beginning of the program when it's over, because we talked about your shirt for a while, for about a good minute or so. All right, so you said 120K. I like that number. Let's fixate on that for a little bit. So let's talk about the primary habits and the things that cause debt. What do we get trapped into in our society that causes us to be in so much debt?
Well, most of our debt personally was student loan debt. We didn't have a ton of credit card debt. We mostly had student loans, and cars was what we were dealing with. So I wouldn't say there's necessarily a ton of habits that contribute to that kind of debt. You know, like we both felt at that time when we were going to college that we needed college degrees. I would totally do it different now. And I plan on teaching my kids a different way so that they don't get themselves into student loan debt. I think there's a lot of people who have a ton of credit card debt, which I'm fortunate that my husband and I never dealt with that. We never got into that cycle. But I think there's a ton of people who do. The habits that contribute to that are pretty simple. You spend more than you make. Or you're not setting a budget for yourself. I mean, those are basically, it's that gotta have it now mentality. You know, you can't wait for anything, instant gratification. I want this now. I'm just gonna swipe my card right now and figure it out later. Gets people into a ton of trouble.
Okay.
So you really took the words out of my mouth. That's a large thing, I think, in our society is we don't connect like the ability to wait a little bit and really know what your budget is. So as an advisor, I sit down with people, let's really figure out what your budget is, like net, you know, what are you bringing home? What are your expenses? Like think about all the things like the subscriptions that people have. Like we just have a lot of ancillary stuff that we don't need.
That's a good word.
Yes. Just a lot of things that are unnecessary to really live a good life. So really taking a good look at that. Like what subscriptions do you have hanging out there that you don't really need? Do you really need cable? Probably not. You know, types of things like that can really add up. As far as debt, like you said, what I counsel people on, what I see a lot of is student loan debt. And you guys were very disciplined to pay that down, which is awesome. But sometimes people have student loan debt that's sometimes double to triple that, and that's just not an option. So there's different ways that you can either refinance, you can look at refinancing a portion of it. There's different strategies. If you work for a not-for-profit, to have it forgiven. So a couple different things you can do on the student loan debt. But I think what we consider is like the bad debt is credit card debt, sometimes too hard of a car payment. And we go to the car lot, like they want to sell you on that nicest, newest car. Like you really probably don't need that nicest, newest car, you know, probably should save up enough cash and just buy something in cash. So there's a lot of things, I think, in our society, unfortunately. We have this keep up with the Joneses mentality. Everybody says that, but it really, we do. We want to have the nicest and the newest, and we unfortunately live in a cycle of debt if we do those things.
Well, and we're up against that right at this moment with my oldest daughter. So she is in theater, and she likes acting, but she really loves the other stuff. She loves the technical directing. She loves costume design. She loves all the things that are around the theater that are all functional, that you don't necessarily see that go on behind the scenes. So here we are, and now we're looking at her going to college. So she's 17, senior at Firestone, which Firestone is really well known for their theater program. And so like the other day, we've been to 2 campus tours so far, and the second was Akron U, and we went to the Akron U big box, and it was beautiful. Like two Firestone theater people, her and one other, were in the tour together, and we walk in and they both just went, oh, you know, because Firestone's got a really nice one. Akron's is 3 times the size. Okay, and they were like, oh my gosh. But the point is, we're at that moment. Does she need to go to college and get that degree, and then have all that debt? Because you heard my story. We're not in a situation where we can help her out a lot. And so now she's either got to take out the loans. Now, granted, she's looking at Akron. I mean, we went to BW. BW's tuition, parents, $48,000 right now. To go to Baldwin Wallace is $48,000 if you want to be part of the theater program at BW, okay? That's a year, all right? So, and Akron's is like 22, 23, 24, difference between a private school and a state school, right? But at what point do we advise go to work or go work at theater? So, but at the same time, we've got friends that are successful that are in those technical theater programs in New York and LA, which we know that if she does go into this, we'll never see her again. Okay. So it's like, what do we do as parents?
So So there's a couple different things. I would try to file for financial aid, one.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that you can do as far as that. Scholarships.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
We're doing all that.
All that. Okay, good. Have you ever thought about possibly having her minor in theater and then major in like a STEM? So if theater, perhaps
You can't do that.
you can't do that.
No, because with theater, the way that those programs work, they're so saturated that you would major in, let's say, technical directorship, and the minor would be in like costume design. So in other words, they're both in the same track.
Okay.
They're just two different disciplines.
So you can't do like a
No,
STEM.
you can't. That's not how that works.
I think the hardest thing about that, and what I've seen from some friends that have liberal arts degrees, it's hard to land a job in that field because it's so competitive. You have to know somebody, you have
100%.
to have connections,
100%.
and it's a very specific. You have to go to LA, you have to go to New York,
Right,
to
that's-
be
that's-
in. Right, so it's
See where we're at?
right.
But she's really good at it. And then as a parent, you're like, oh, I want my kid to succeed. Oh, I want to encourage my kid. And you're like, but you're thinking in the back, grandpa down south, he's like, yeah, but what are you going to do once you, he's that guy, right? So what's your take on that?
I went to Akron. My brother went to Akron. He's 2 years older than me. We both did 4-year degrees. The difference between the two of us, so we were there at the same time, so paid about the same amount of money for our degrees. The difference between us is he came out debt free and I came out with thousands of dollars in debt. How did that happen? Because we both worked through college. I took all my money and spent it on beer, and he took all of his money and stayed at home with my parents, so he didn't have to pay rent. I moved out. He took all of his money and put it towards his college education.
But did you have more fun?
I had a ton more fun. I did.
So, there. All right. But it cost you in the long run.
But it cost me a ton of money and a lot of stress.
Short-term gain, long-term.
Yeah, a lot of stress for me and my husband, who,
Right.
At the time I didn't know him, but I was preparing him or, getting ready to put him into some financial stress too because of those bad decisions. My advice, and this is what I'm going to tell my boys, my husband and I have decided that we are not setting up college funds for our kids.
Okay.
Attack me if you want. I'm a
I know,
terrible,
we
terrible
don't.
mother. Gosh, I know.
We don't.
But we're not going to because we're pretty far behind in saving for retirement. And so we've decided to prioritize that in our life. So our advice to our kids is going to be, when they're shopping for college, if they decide to go to college, you've got Baldwin Wallace and your private schools that are if you're car shopping, those are your BMWs.
Sure.
And then you've got Akron that's the mid-range,
Hondas.
Yeah, there you go. And then you've got your community schools that are your used.
Pintos.
Yeah.
I love Pintos. We got to bring Pintos back. Come on with Pintos.
So you're shopping. What can you afford?
But I didn't mean to say that. I got to backpedal because I'm a public figure now, right? So I'm not making fun of a community college at all. Stark State is a wonderful institute. Okay.
It's seriously, when it comes down to it, nobody cares where you got your degree.
100%. I agree.
Nobody cares. So even if you just start at a community college, everybody's got to take English
credits,
and math.
yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
Start there. And my other biggest piece of advice is you don't have to get a degree in 4 years.
Okay.
You don't have to. You're not
You're the gap year, the gap year person.
No, start right away if you want to. If you know what you want to do, go. But if it takes you 6 or 7 years because you're working
Right,
during
okay, I
the
see what
day
you're
and then
saying.
taking
Okay.
night classes,
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
Because that is so much better than taking out loans just so you can get done in 4 years. No.
And then you get out and you get this degree and then you don't get a job.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I would say. You got to really pick a degree that you're going to have a job in.
Right.
That's the hardest thing because you want to follow your dreams, you want to do what you love, but you can do some of that kind of stuff on the side and be passionate about it, give to it later on in life when you're able to financially. Yeah. But I just think that the biggest things for kids, and the thing that I'm going to stress to my kids, is doing a STEM degree. If you need to do science, technology, engineering,
or in trade schools, where you're basically like an apprentice and you're earning money while you're learning the job. Anything, like, consider any of those things. I'm not knocking 4-year bachelor degrees. Like, I have one, my husband has one. But if I could go back and do it over again, I would work as much as I could during the day, take some night classes, pay in cash for my college education as I went. If it took me 7 or 8 years, it takes me 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
Like,
Miss Sheena, if you're still watching, you just said right. Please use your words. Tell us what what was right. What you were agreeing with? Yeah, and I went 5 years, so I ended up with even more debt because I did the classic. I pledged a fraternity, Phi Delta Theta. God bless you guys. Love you. Okay, but then I had that semester, the old 1.3, and it's like I was pledging. Okay, so then I literally had to like 4 out just to graduate above a 3.0. But yeah, so let's talk about the budget then. Let's get back to that. Okay, so when you talk about budgeting, how does that work? First of all, let me look here. Okay, we'll do the book with the next one. All right. So the budget. How do you budget? How do you guys budget?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to start with your necessities, obviously. You've got to start with housing and food and clothing and all of those things that you have to pay for. So literally when my husband and I budget, we do it at the beginning of the month, every single month. We write down exactly how much money we know for sure is coming in that month. His teaching pay is, very steady. That's always, the same amount every month. But then he coaches, and I'm also the administrator of his soccer club. So that money fluctuates. We can estimate it, we'll try to always estimate low. And then we start subtracting, our mortgage payment, our gas, electric, all the necessities. And then once we go through all of that, the money that we have left over gets divided up into different categories, such as entertainment. My husband gets an entertainment budget. I get an entertainment budget. My kids get an entertainment budget. We do a dining out category so that we can treat ourselves and go out to eat, once a week. And we do an envelope system. This is like Dave Ramsey style. This is like the method that works for us. There's other methods you can use, but this is what works for us. So, each category has an envelope, and we literally at the first of the month, my husband goes and takes out the amount of cash we need to put into those envelopes. Okay. And that's how we set it up.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that method. I think first and foremost, if you're first starting, it's really getting a hold of what you're spending. So having a clear idea of what is going out, what needs to go out. So I typically coach my clients on 20-60-20. So 60% of your income should be going towards living expenses, like your mortgage, like your utilities, things that you absolutely necessarily need to have. And then 20% should be going towards saving. We're going to get to that in a little bit. And then 20% should be allocated towards the fund. But I think the 60% is what you really got to hone in on and figure out what those expenses are. Like I said, the subscriptions, like unnecessary, going out to eat a lot. That's a huge one. I see people spending way too much money going out to eat. The biggest thing in anything is if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So that's with everything. So you got to meal prep. You've got to, so you're not scrambling. What are we going to do? Oh, we're just going to go out to eat. Yeah. You've got to really sit down and hone in the budget. I really want to, I have, fitness goals, whatever those are, you have to plan. Yeah. Planning is the most important thing. So it's sitting down at whatever time works for you and really setting out a clear path.
As you guys are doing this, I'm putting the notes down. So I've got that down. When budgeting, estimate incoming money on the low side, and then the 20-60-20. While I was putting that in, Sheena did mention STEM. When she said right, she was talking about the STEM degrees. It says no one cares where your degree comes from. Work through college, pay cash. Otherwise, it's going to come back to haunt you. So that's Miss Sheena. So when she runs that dance studio, that's one of our sponsors. Okay. All right. So 120. How'd you do it? How'd you get out of that hole? How do you get out of significant debt? Okay.
Okay. So
And you got the book, you got the prop?
yeah, so
All
this
right.
is what we did. We used Dave Ramsey's method,
Not a sponsor.
not a sponsor. And this is
He
literally...
can be if he wants.
That
Keep
would
going.
Be a great sponsor.
That would be a good sponsor.
This is literally all my husband and I did was read this book. He offers Financial Peace University that a lot of churches will offer to take the classes. I would say, you know, if you really, really are having a hard time getting on the same page as your spouse, that would be a great place to start. Luckily, my husband and I, we were just on the same page. We both read the book. He read it first. I read it. My husband listens to Dave Ramsey on the radio. We just both said, yes, this is what we're doing, and we committed to it together. And so basically his method is you list all of your debt from largest to smallest. And then what you do is, you know, once you set your budget, you've got your cash envelopes, you know where all of your money is going throughout the month. You've got a surplus at the end, usually, and you just start putting that towards your smallest debt, the smallest one. A lot of people will want to start with the largest one or the one that has the most, like the highest interest rate, but starting with the smallest one because you can usually pay it off pretty quickly. You know, I think our smallest one was like a student loan debt that was like $1,000. So we were able to get that paid off in a couple months, and he calls this the snowball. Now that, you know, the minimum payment for that student loan, that small debt, was maybe $25 a month. Now we've freed up that $25 a month, and that goes in a snowball to my next smallest debt. And you just keep working your way up.
But do you keep that 25? You don't like put back in the kitty. You keep it as it existed. As it existed as the payment.
And you're always paying the minimum payments on all of your debts because you don't want to get behind, because that's just going to create late fees and more debt for you.
Okay.
So you're always paying the minimum balances or the minimum, you know, payment on each of your debts. But yeah, once you pay off one, now that gets rolled over. Now I'm paying an extra $25 on my next smallest.
Gotcha.
Loan.
Okay.
And basically what it came down to for us is, yeah, now we have that extra $25, but where can we get more money to throw at this snowball to make our snowball bigger? And so, I mean, it became a game to us, especially with our entertainment money. My husband and I both would get our own entertainment money for the month. And like, it was like a competition of who could have the most left over at the end of the month to put towards the snowball. So it became fun. We found like really, you know, fun, like cheap date ideas to do. And you've got to make the most of your situation. And that's kind of one of the things we did.
So I like the snowball method. I think more than anything, what it gives you is a sense of accomplishment pretty quickly. So you do get like that, the Pavlov.
Momentum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a conditioning. So you're like, hey, I paid that off. It feels good. Let's go to the next one. So the snowball method is good for that. You can see some real progress. So typically it depends on what kind of debt it is. Number one, a lot of folks with student loan debt, what I will tell them to do, as opposed to sometimes the snowball method's not the best. Sometimes the best is going highest interest rate first. Because if you do the math mathematically, you would pay less if you pay off your highest interest rates off first. So doing it kind of that way systematically by highest interest first. And then another thing, if people have a large amount of credit card debt, sometimes you can carry that balance over to an interest-free credit card and pay it down that way, so you're not having to pay the compounding interest. So compounding interest is huge. I mean, it's really the eighth world wonder. Einstein put it best. You know, if you have, I've explained this before, but some people don't understand what it is. So if you've got $1,000 and your interest payment on that is, or excuse me, your interest payment is 20%. So you're going to owe $1,225 because you still have that minimum payment you have to make. So making sure that you use, so the compounding interest. So the next month that rolls over. So you pay just $25 on it. You're going to have $1,175 due plus 20% of that. So it compounds each month. So it can work for you or against you. So you want to work for you.
I think remembering, see, we're credit card free right now because when when I did have to shut down the company, we did have to bankrupt it, okay? But I remember paying the minimum on some of those credit cards, and then the next bill would come and it was bigger.
Yeah.
And it was the most disheartening.
Yeah.
Compounding interest.
It was just soul crushing. It's like I'm paying all this money, and these were like hefty payments. It'd be like $400, $500, $600 minimum payments, and you're making this payment, and then it comes back and the bill's bigger, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
So sorry, I was fidgeting around. Miss Sheena's watching right now. I didn't like how small her phone number was, so
you got me sidetracked.
look. See what I did? I wrote. I'll fix it next week, but I wanted the phone number bigger. All right, so yeah, because she's watching and contributing right now. All right, so emergencies, the end all be all of what crushes the budget. Okay, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. Just so I know we're all fair and balanced here, we're all reporting like a month or two ago that the average American household is not prepared to handle a $400 or $500 or $600 emergency.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. How do you set up for that? What do you do if you're not prepared for it? How do you divert? What's your advice on dealing with emergencies?
So you have to have an emergency fund. Typically, I coach my clients to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up and in cash. You don't touch it.
Months?
Yes.
Months.
Months.
Oh my God.
I know, but that's what gets you out of the debt cycle. So a radiator goes out in your car. You can use that in order to fix it instead of putting it on a credit card and paying those high interest credit cards.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you, but how realistic is it for average middle class America?
I'm average middle class, and I have a 3 to 6 month emergency.
She's like,
fund.
But I think it's one thing. You guys have priorities.
We have priorities.
You had
yes.
priorities, and you had a long-term goal in mind, and you guys stuck to it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's many people like that, so I definitely commend you guys
Thank
for
you.
that.
Yeah.
So it's being consistent.
Now, I will say this. If you're following the Dave Ramsey method, his suggestion is when you're in debt that you only have a $1,000 emergency fund, that you should not be sitting on a bunch of savings when that could be put towards debt.
okay.
So that was actually the first thing we did was, when we started that $120,000, I want to say we had like $10,000 in savings. Like we were saving, but only paying the minimums on all of our payments. And so when we read this, we're like, all right, well, let's empty it down to 1,000. And so we were able to make one big, huge, payment in the beginning to put towards our debt, but we kept 1,000 as an emergency fund. And I will say that there was only in our 4 years, because a lot of people will say 1,000 is not enough, and they like freak out over that number. There's no way, like what if your roof starts leaking or, your car blows up? Yeah, like stuff like that could happen. In the amount of 4 years, we had one emergency that was more than $1,000, and we were fortunate enough to have parents help us with that emergency. So that was something that we could lean on. We knew that going in that if something dire were to happen, our families are not going to let us suffer and would help us. But other than that $1,000 emergency fund worked for our car repairs and stuff like that. One other thing I'll add though is we did have sinking funds, and a sinking fund is just like a very specific savings account that you put aside for certain things. Like we have one for car repairs. We have one for medical, like co-pays. Like we're really fortunate that we have good insurance, but those co-pays come up in the winter, when you're taking the kids to the doctor, every other day. We have sinking funds we did have one for an actual car because we knew my car was going to just die soon. But so that way, like when a tire blows or, your radiator goes out, we go to that sinking fund first, and it's small. We really were only able to put maybe $20 a month into it, but you're not using it every month. Your tire doesn't blow every month, hopefully. So usually we could start with that and then go to the emergency fund if we needed more. So that was kind of the kind of a crutch to go with the $1,000.
Anything else, Jess?
I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about our mini-me's. So, children are wonderful. They're all blessings from God. They're all smiling little cherubs. But there are times when they want things, or they need things, or they want things that they think they need, okay? So how do we provide for our children, and when is it right to say yay or nay? We were lamenting impulse racks at grocery stores before the show went live on the air in terms of being that new parent, and you've got this toddler that can now reach outside of the cart. And it's like you got to become like a ninja, like a martial artist, where you got to like block the hands from grabbing the candy off the shelves.
The racks are it's smaller too. It's like more condensed, so they can reach. Like, and then you just have to console
Can
them.
I answer Sheena's
Yes,
question?
so Sheena asked the question,
Yeah.
where do you put your sinking funds?
We just put those in envelopes as well. And those are like tucked away in a very secret spot in the house, like that we don't see them, except for the only time we see them is when we put money in or take money out. So they're like hidden, so I'm never like tempted to take money out of them.
My grandma and grandpa, old school, old world Italian, old world Polish. So they both passed away in their mid-90s, okay? They had money all over their house. There were envelopes behind chairs, under plants, in clocks. Like when my aunt and my uncle and my mom went to go look at the house after the one had moved into a nursing home and the other had passed away, and they literally had to take everything apart to make sure, because there was money everywhere. So they literally had these little sinking funds like hidden all over the house.
That is not the case. Don't come rob my house when you start looking for things, I promise. I'm going to just put it in the bank now. I wasn't even thinking.
All right, Jess, go ahead.
Love it. Okay, so as far as kids, this is a tough one. So my kids are 6 months and 2.5. So we have not even quite hit the ages where like impulses are really strong, falling on the ground, temper tantrum, they need something. That's going to be tough. But I would say two things that I did that I really liked is read Amy Chua's book, Triple Threat, and then Battle Hymn of a Tiger Mom. She specifically lays out the qualifications and the characteristics, better word to use, of different ethnicities and kind of how they're so successful and why they're so successful. And I think the biggest one is delayed gratification. So we were talking earlier a little bit about spending so much money on a birthday party or, really like just blowing the bank on holidays like Christmas. You don't have to do that. And if something is really important to a child, you teach them how to save for it, and you model that delayed gratification for them. And I think that's what will set them up for success, to show that things don't, come, just out of the air. You're going to have to work for it. If this is something that you really want, we need to systematically set money aside on a weekly, monthly basis in order to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
And my upper middle, is a good template of that right now. She's got in her head that she wants an iPhone, okay? So she's just now started to babysit. So she's making bucks, And then she also helps at the dance studio as well. And like every time she gets money, she'll put it away and she'll tell me the update of how much. Oh, do you know I got $152 now? Hey, do you know I have $195 now? And I'm like, yeah. Do you know what an iPhone costs?
Keep saving.
Well, and that's the whole point. I applaud her for doing that, but at the same time, when she hits that magic number of, okay, I can now buy an iPhone, then now we'll sit down at the table and I'll say, now, do we really need an iPhone? You've got a phone that functions right now. Why do you need? You've got a tablet. You've got a computer at home. You've got another iPod thing. Why do you? Plus, who's going to pay for the data plan and the data package and add it to the network? Because it's got to be on a network with Verizon. And so your cost now, in addition to what it costs, also now costs $80 a month.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? So then we'll have that conversation when it's time.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I like what she's doing.
Yeah, it's great.
So, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jessica said. I don't have, much else to add to that. We tell our boys no all the time. And what I think about is, what do I want for them in the long term? Our kids learn habits from their parents. And that's eating habits, it's spending habits, it's, you know, any kind of possible habit in your life. You learn it first from your parents. When I look at my money habits, they are very similar to what my parents' money habits were. I look at friends and can see, like, you know, my childhood friends, yep, they spend money just like their parents did too. And so I think about that and I think, well, this is part of my parenting job, is to teach them good money financial habits. And so, yeah, that's what we are teaching my son. My oldest son is 5. So he's just really starting to get into, like, when he gets $1 for something, he wants to go to the store and spend it immediately. And so we have been talking about that just like in the past week. He had $5, a $5 bill, and every time we would go to the store, he would bring it with him and go down to the Nerf aisle. I want to buy a Nerf gun. I'm like, you don't have enough to buy a Nerf gun. And so his next thing is, well, then what can I buy? And it's like, don't just spend money just because you have it, you know? Like, let's put the $5 aside and earn some more until you can get what you really want, and teaching him that. And, you know, that's what I want for my boys. I don't want my boys to end up $120,000 in debt. So I'm going to do everything I can to give them the right tools to not make the same decisions that we did. In the end, it's their choice to make, but I'm at least going to give them the knowledge that I have and the tools that I have. So
I love that you're doing that too, is, you know, saying, hey, we probably shouldn't spend this right now, and like kind of coaching them around that. Because I think we're all wired differently. And like sometimes you do have to fight against the way that you're wired. And typically when I sit down with couples, one's a spender, one's a saver. And there's like some friction in there. So really like hashing that out, what's important to you, what's important to you, like let's find where we can meet in the middle. So that, as well as I really want, when my kids are older, to kind of take them through our entire budget and show them this is how we do it. You know, sit down, pay the bills, like balance the checkbook, like we still, you know, use the checkbook balance, and, you know, so they can really understand, like, this is how much it costs to live, and like to really, you know, go through the process of, like, you know, this is net income, and like, because I feel like a lot of kids weren't taught that maybe. So I think sitting them down, walking them through that whole entire process will be very hands-on learning.
Yeah, I think my kids understand a lot of that because they are older, and, you know, we do talk about it because, you know, they know we've struggled financially. And what's nice about it is I'll be like, just go make friends. They're like, well, I want an Xbox. I'm like, no. Hey, go. Noah's got one across the street. Go play. Go. See you, bye. And then go play on the Xbox. You know, but we have a PlayStation that's an older one. It's a PlayStation 1. I know that dates me, or a 2. I think it's a 2. And then we've got the N64, okay? We are the coolest family in our little area of West Akron because we've got GoldenEye, and the kids can play GoldenEye on N64. So it's like this old, oh my gosh, it's that old game. And so they come and play GoldenEye.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, you know, I could go drop $300 or $400 on a new gaming system, and then you're going to sit there all day and you're not going to do anything. You're going to play games all day when you should be out mowing lawns. Okay? So, and that's what brings me to my next question is how do you, as far as priorities, okay? So when we look at the financial priorities, like, I know it's a very open-ended question, but how do you guys framework that with your family, with your kids, with your spouse? What are your priorities? Like, for example, David and Jen, my brother and sister-in-law, their priority is traveling. Like, they don't care about all the stuff and all the things. They want to be able to go on 2 or 3 vacations a year as a family and do it while they can, while their kids are still not in college. So how do you guys framework that with your?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be completely different from family to family, and it's going to be based on your values. And so priority, you know, what motivated us to start this lifestyle was me being home with our children. That was priority number 1 for us. My love language is quality time, 100%. Like, I don't even check a box for any of the other love languages. I want to spend time with you.
So you're like, don't touch me.
Don't touch me. Don't give me a present.
I just want to sit here and look at you. And we're together. All right, got it.
And so, yeah, that is a huge like value of mine. I feel like my husband values that quite a bit too. And so same thing, like not necessarily travel for us, although we do love to travel and want to make that a priority, but it's just experiences with our family. That's like a top priority. So yeah, my husband and I don't care anything about a brand new car. I drove my car for 13 years until it almost died. Like I wanted to make sure we could at least drive it to the dealership to get a new car.
Right.
And we traded it in for $300 and it was a 2006 Saturn Vue, traded it in and bought a 2006 Toyota Sienna. And it was like my dream car. The dealer, like the car salesman was like, what are you talking about? You're saying this is your dream car? Like it's the same year as the car you're trading in. It's a minivan. I'm like, this is what I want. Like it's going to take us to the beach and all that. You know, like we would never pay for a brand new car, but I was able to pay cash for that. So yeah, those are our priorities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is prioritizing what are the most important things to you and your family. And then specifically really, taking down, what is it going to be the debt that's most important us to pay off? For me, I think in the mindset that I look at it is saving for retirement. You can't borrow for retirement. You got to save for that. I think this is the one. I love Dave Ramsey. I think the way that he does things, I think it's a great method. It works for a lot of people. The biggest thing that I differ on is paying off all debt before you start saving for retirement. So I think you really have to, it's that delayed gratification again. You really have to start putting money away for something that's long term, which is retirement. It's coming, folks. We're living a whole lot longer. So you really got to plan. You really got to save for it. So 20-60-20 again, you really have to prioritize, pay yourself first. So that's paying off debt, doing your savings for retirement, savings for a home, whatever those big, larger goals are, putting that aside, then living off the rest, basically. So it's that mentality of putting money back first and then spending the rest later, and really having a powwow with your significant other. What are the important things to us? How are we going to get there? What are we going to spend this money on?
In the industry that this is, you just did what is called a segue. Beautifully done. Well done. To the next question.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that is in that planning in the future for retirement. We'll start with you on this one. How do you do it? There's so many. We normal American person gets hit with all these terms. Okay. You got your IRA. You got your Roth IRA. You got your annuities. You got your stocks and bonds, you got you got your 401 and your 403 and the blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. What do you do? What do you recommend? What are your, and then the portfolios and all that stuff. Okay, explain some of that. So, now, I know we don't want to take all your secret sauce. Okay?
Yeah, it's okay, because I think it's very specific to each person. So basically what I do with folks is I sit down and say, what are your goals? When do you want to retire? Let's just say run the mill. I want to retire at 65 on $5,000 a month. We back into that. What do we need to be saving today in order to get to that? So I've got financial programs that I can run that number based on for you. So that's the beauty of working with an advisor. But specifically, the biggest things that you want to be doing, if you're at a company or a school system, wherever you're working, if they provide a match, you need to absolutely be taking advantage of that.
It's free money.
It's free money. Do not leave it on the table. At least take that. And then once you're doing that, I think you need to look at the other buckets that you can save in. So a big one is a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. So Roth money goes in with after-tax dollars, so it's money that's already been taxed, grows tax deferred, similar to a 401k. Both of those retirement accounts grow tax deferred. The Roth IRA or Roth 401k would come out with no taxes. So a lot of people, when I run projections for them, are saving a ton in their 401k. They're like, well, what's that money going for in the middle? Oh, that's taxes. So in a 401k, just a traditional IRA, you're going to have to pay taxes on that. So you have to plan for that in retirement. So obviously there was tax legislation that just went through. Taxes today may not be what taxes will be 20, 30 years from now. So having money in different buckets. Obviously Social Security is not something we should think that's going to be there necessarily, but we do. My thoughts are it's probably going to be watered down, probably for the millennial generation. So all of those things are yet to be seen, but I think most importantly is sitting down with a financial advisor, really understanding your benefits. There's a lot of things that are in your benefits package at work that are free, underutilized, and really knowing what's in there and taking full advantage of those. If you have, if your children are in daycare, maxing out your FSA, your family savings accounts, your HSA for those co-pays, deductibles, those can be more tax efficient ways to use money that you're going to have to use anyways.
Yeah. And then for you guys, I mean, throughout the process, he was the teacher the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So you got STRS is set up. It's already it's going out of the paycheck already. So that's good.
Yeah, we at least had that. That was always happening. And then once we got out of debt, we set aside we took some time to do the 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And then that's when we sat down with an advisor. I mean, we are so uneducated on all of this. I mean, that's why we have advisors. We had no idea where to start, investing. And so we found, by recommendation, a really great advisor who, same thing, sat down with us, and you just work backwards. This is where we want to be at this time in our life. This is how much money we want to have. And you just work backwards until you get to what that number looks like. And same thing, they set up several different accounts for us. It's not all in one place. And Dave Ramsey recommends always investing at least 15% of your income. That's a good place to start. We try to do more than that just because we feel like we're a little bit behind right now and we're trying to catch up. But I think that's a good place to start.
Okay. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much. If you wanted to go ahead. You want to pub yourself a little bit? Do some closing thoughts?
Yeah, sure. So Jessica Holt, Northwestern Mutual. You can find me on Facebook. My last name is spelled Holte with an E. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me online. I think it's www.jessicaholt.nm.com.
Okay. Do you do other stuff too?
I am a consultant for Rodan and Fields.
Okay.
My name is Stacy Thacker, Thacker. And then I work for my husband's soccer club. But yeah, if you ever need any skincare, I'm your girl.
RNF, I know a lot of them. They're happy. They're always happy and smiley. So, ladies, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it. This has been great. And again, the goal in doing a topic like this is to share as much information as we can, and at the end of the day, just to encourage you folks out there. A lot of us, we're all in different stratospheres when it comes to finances, and we're all in different, I hate using that term, seasons of life, okay? And we're all in different places, right? But at the end of the day, the goal is to make it through, right? So there's different methods or different methodologies, different thought processes as far as how to do that. But right now, we've spent the last hour just kind of sharing those with you. Hopefully, you got a little nugget out of tonight. And if you're just tuning in now, make sure you go back and watch the program in its entirety. But thank you so much, ladies. So next week, we're going to be heading back to Kenmore once again, back to the Boulevard. And we're going to take a glance at First Glance, which is a indoor skate park that very few people know exist in this little Northeast Ohio corridor. So we're going to check that out. Should be a fun little show. So yeah. Hey, until then, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense in late. Until then, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense in being late. Ladies, please join me. Say goodnight, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.
This podcast is a copyright of Moon Garden Media Limited.
Oh, this a lot of peanut butter.